We knew it was coming, and now it is law. Japan enacts several new security measures over stiff opposition. But are the laws constitutional? Plus, analysts speculate on North Korea's tests, and Japan looks to smooth things out with Russia. These stories are coming up next. This is the Asia Brief. A very good Monday morning to you. Steve Miller here on this September 21st, 2015. Thank you so much for joining me. Let's go ahead and begin with our very first story from Japan. Japan's upper house of parliament passed security measures this past weekend, easing restrictions placed upon its military by the nation's post-World War II pacifist constitution. It was a move that has sharply divided the nation, bringing scores out into the open to protest against Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and even cause scuffles in the normally reserved Diet. Public polls showed roughly 54% of Japan opposed to the new security measures, with only 29% in favor. And the case can be made that the fundamental shift in moving away from pacifism to one of conflict is the sole factor that has divided the nation. But there is more at play here. What Abe did was essentially change the rules of the game, and that's what has opposition lawmakers upset.
Saying that you can just reinterpret the Constitution.
Michael Chuchek, adjunct fellow at the Institute for Contemporary Asian Studies at Temple University, Japan.
After 50 years of prime ministers testifying in the Diet saying, we can do self-defense, but we can't do collective security. We can't go to the defense of another country. That's unconstitutional.
And lawmakers aren't alone in thinking what Abe, the LDP, and the Komeito party are doing isn't above board. Chuchek explains that in a recent survey of constitutional experts, over 90% didn't support the procedure they've been following to enact these laws. Chuchek says what Abe did has shattered the distinction between what is constitutional and what is unconstitutional.
Absolutely shatters the concept of unconstitutional versus constitutional. If just a new administration can come in and say, everything that's been unconstitutional until now, it's constitutional. We just changed our minds.
Opposition groups vowed to challenge these laws, saying the changes are a black stain on the country's history. Renho, a senior lawmaker from the main opposition Democratic Party of Japan, said via Twitter, quote, "This is not an end. Let's make it the beginning of the beginning," end quote. Mizuho Fukushima from the Social Democratic Party told supporters, quote, "Abe's cabinet criminals. Let's get them out of here," end quote. That may be easier said than done, as no opposition political parties have been able to unseat the LDP and Komeito. Legal scholars have announced they are already preparing to challenge these new laws. NHK reports constitutional scholar Setsu Kobayashi from Keio University is gathering 1,000 lawyers to file a challenge to the legislation in Tokyo District Court. But as Chuchek explains, that might not go his way.
Now, in the Constitution of Japan, the body that determines whether a law is constitutional or not is supposed to be the Supreme Court. But in practice, the Supreme Court, and all the courts, in fact, of Japan, are very reticent to contradict the things that the executive branch says.
Whatever the outcome, it will be months, perhaps even longer, before everything is resolved. Until then, Japan's troops are now free to act under their newly expanded roles. For the past week, pundits have been sharing their thoughts as to what they think North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will do in early October when the nation celebrates the founding of the Workers' Party. Young Moon-jin, a professor at South Korea's University of North Korea Studies, said Pyongyang is trying to tout Kim Jong-un's achievements by holding a high-profile event. Quote, "North Korea has repeatedly indicated its intent to conduct the launch this year. North Koreans will use the celebration to declare the Kim Jong-un era," end quote. Young said that in an interview with the Voice of America. Rand Corporation's Bruce Bennett told me via Twitter, quote, "Kim Jong-un was the clear loser of the crisis he caused with provocations in August. He will not want that appearance to persist. He has to win a provocation. He needs to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the Workers' Party October 10th and the 9th anniversary of the first North Korean nuclear test, October 9th. For these and other reasons, a nuclear test is a plausible North Korean action in early October, though the long-range missile test could happen." End quote. Some think a nuclear test is less likely. Jung Young-tae, a senior research fellow at the Korea Institute for National Unification, said, quote, "It is worth noting North Korea indicated it could use a nuclear test as a countermeasure to international pressure and sanctions. However, the statement came from the head of the Atomic Energy Institute trying to show off the enhancement of the country's nuclear capability to the world." End quote. The key there is that Kim didn't issue the statement. What do I think will happen? Well, I'm more keen to agree with the assessment of Che Gang, deputy chief of the Asian Institute for Policy Studies, who says, quote, "If North Korea launches a long-range rocket and claims it is a satellite, China will be in a difficult position to condemn it. However, if North Korea conducts a nuclear test, China has no option but to take it as a clear provocation and adopt a stronger measure against North Korea." End quote. For that reason, while I do expect the DPRK to carry out a nuclear test at some point, I'm not sure the political climate is right just yet. A long-range missile launch might be easier to get backing from China on, but we haven't had confirmation of activity on the launch gantry. But what's your best guess as to what we'll see in early October? A nuclear test? A missile launch? Or both? Relations between South Korea and Japan took a nosedive after former President Lee Myung-bak traveled to Dokdo, a small pair of islets Japan also claims as Takeshima. Likewise, after Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev's visit to the southern Kurils, which Japan calls the Northern Territories, things have been rocky. Now, Japanese Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida will meet his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, this week to see about mending ties. Russia seized the islands in the final days of World War II, and the dispute has kept the two countries from signing a formal peace treaty since then. Now think about it. 70 years have passed for Russia and Japan, and a peace treaty still isn't finalized. Does that sound like any other East Asian countries we know? It's hoped the meeting could smooth things over, enough to allow a Putin-Abe summit. Well, my friends, those are today's stories. Please take a moment out of your day and let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. The Asia Brief is a special feature of the Asia News Weekly podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, please share it with your friends, and if you haven't, subscribe. Subscribing is free, and when you do, the next episode is delivered automatically to you. You can subscribe on our website, asianewsweekly.net, or in your favorite podcast application. You can also keep up with more news from the region by following Asia News Weekly on Facebook or Twitter. And if you have any comments, questions, or feedback, be sure to drop us a line. That email address is podcast@asianewsweekly.net. Thank you so much for joining me, and until next time, remember to be true to yourself and to always be awesome.